I'm Erica. I'm 23 years old. Um, and I first got involved with veganism back in 2010. I feel like I should preface first that I had had eating disordered behaviors in the past, probably around the ages of like 11 or 12. Um, so that kind of got me, that might be one of the reasons why veganism was a bit appealing to me, especially being younger. So just to keep in mind that that's kind of the mind frame that I'd been in getting into it. But I was a sophomore in high school, and I had a friend who was a vegan. And I think that's where I kind of got interested in the idea. And he was a pretty a built vegan. I'm really curious to see what he looks like now, or if he's even still interested in it. But anyway, I think my main draw to it was that it was the excuse. Um, you know, now I had the excuse. Well, I don't really have to. I don't have to eat what people are preparing for me. Oh, I'm vegan. I don't eat that stuff. I don't eat meat. I don't eat dairy. It was a way that I could kind of uh, have my eating disorder mentality, but it was a nicer excuse. It looked a lot better. Um, but the first 2 years, um, I mean, keep in mind I was only like 15, 16, I don't know. First 2 years, I just kind of did a very standard kind of a vegan diet. I ate a lot of oatmeal. I did um, a lot of boiled vegetables, really boring, like boring, gross food. And I didn't eat very much. I kept it really low calorie. Um, was feeling okay. It was nothing great, but it just wasn't anything super substantial. So I kind of went scouring for maybe different kinds of veganism. What wasn't really looking into anything super different, but you stumble on the vegans like it's really the banana girl who I saw eating all this food and um, looking pretty good, and I'm thinking, I could probably do that. Um, be a lot better than eating like disgusting stodgy bowls of oatmeal all day long and vegetables and tomato sauce. So yeah, this is 2013. Kind of started delving into more of like the high carb movement. It's kind of where a lot of people tend to start. So I was doing the bananas and dates and fruits in the morning and then doing all the starches at night. Potatoes, vegetables, and definitely feeling better. Probably just because I was actually eating again, um, but not fantastic. I mean, it was nothing great. So again, like I'm still looking. I did it for maybe a year, and it's summer of 2014, and now I've decided, okay, I'm ready to kind of take the plunge and go completely raw. Like, let's cut out all the cooked food. Let's do completely raw foods. And it was right into like the fruitarian movement. I'm eating 10 oranges. I'm doing 15 bananas. I'm eating these giant bowls of gross salad, like really gross salads. But of course, during the time, I'm not even thinking about that. All I'm thinking is, you know, I get to eat all this food. It's, I was still losing tons of weight, which is really all I was kind of interested in. If I'm being totally honest, I wasn't honest about myself in the beginning, but um, that was really that was what was the most motivating. I'm losing all this weight. I wasn't even that heavy to begin with. I didn't have a weight problem, but I wanted to be as small as I possibly could. So now it's I did that for a whole year and a half. Yeah, of only raw foods, and I could have gotten down to like 99 pounds at my lowest, like if and I'm only 5'5", so that's a pretty small frame. I did a lot of endurance exercises, but I just found that I couldn't keep up with it. So by the end of my raw veganism, the year and a half that I did it, I kind of had to stop doing that. Um, but everything kind of came to a halt. This is now we're into winter 2015, and I'm about 20, and I got really, really sick. That's when I just found that I couldn't keep doing it. I was getting ready for class one morning, and I don't know what it was. I woke up so ravenously hungry, just so hungry. Oh my gosh. And I had this really strong craving for peanuts. And when I think about it now, I think it was probably just that subconsciously I knew that like I probably just had peanuts in the house. Maybe it was all the fat, maybe it was the salt, but I could not stop thinking about it. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll entertain the idea. I'll have a little bit of peanuts, and could have had like a handful of them with whatever fruit I was eating. Who knows? I can't remember. Went to class, felt totally fine, and didn't eat anything for the rest of the day. Like I don't know what it was. Couldn't make myself eat for the rest of the day. And the very next day, back at class, I go to school, and I feel so sick. I thought I was gonna die. I thought I could have died right there on the campus of my university. And it was like my stomach was just like extending outwards, almost like all this gas was building in my stomach, but there was nothing in there. It was really scary. It was really weird. And so anyway, I get the train and I go back home and I hop on my bike and I practically pass out biking home from being at school. And I went home. I'm throwing up. I've got diarrhea for 2 days. I can't keep any food down. And it was really shocking, I guess. I was so scared that I thought I needed to, on the third day, I decided to go to the hospital. I go to the hospital and get an ultrasound. They check things out, and all the doctors are just telling me, you have gastroparesis. You're not digesting any food anymore. It is just, like, everything has just come to a screeching halt. You've got these huge amounts of undigested food and fiber just sitting in your stomach. And they said, we're not going to give you a stomach pump. We're just, you just wait it out. And I'm in pain. I'm in so much pain right now. I'm thinking, really? You expect me to just kind of wait this out? Like, what am I supposed to do? But I did. And maybe by the fifth or sixth day, decided to reintroduce some of the raw foods, and immediately it's like all of the symptoms came right back. I wasn't digesting anything, and this went on for 3 weeks. And I wasn't really back on my feet until about a month later. But I still had that mentality. I wanted to keep doing the raw thing. I thought, I'm going to heal my body. I'm just going to go back to eating all the raw foods I was eating. It's going to be fine. And now we're into, it's like late winter. And I'm back at work. This is right after my sickness. I go right back to work. And I'm working a late shift. It could be midnight. I bike home and I'm kind of hungry. I have grapes. I don't know. Grapes, apples. And then it was as if it wasn't enough. It was as if like my brain was screaming at me that I needed to eat more. Like it just, I could not get satisfied eating all the grapes, eating all these apples. And so I go downstairs and I just start looking around at what there is, like what's there to eat. I just gotta, quiet my brain. I'm driving myself crazy. And I see a whole container of like those huge containers of like raw oatmeal, like raw oats, which I hadn't thought about in years. But it was just like I was looking at it and I'm like, that looks really good right now. But I'm still raw. I don't want to break that. I don't want to cook anything. I take a spoon and I just start eating it out of the container. Like, and I'm doing this and I'm like, this is insane. What am I doing right now? I ate the whole thing in one night. And I'd never had a moment like that. That was the first moment that I had felt like I'd totally lost all this control. But I was thinking like that was weird. I'm never going to do that again. Let's next day I'll go back and I'll just go back eating to my raw foods. And it was since that night, I could never go back into it. So that was really when the raw veganism stopped. Not because I thought that I should stop. I couldn't. No amount of fruits or vegetables or anything like that would satisfy this feeling that I had to just keep eating. And I wasn't feeling good. Like I wasn't for the however many five or whatever years that I had been on the vegan diet so far. I wasn't feeling great. So I was just constantly looking for these things. I'm binging out on all of these, not okay foods, I guess. But I felt like I couldn't help it. I was eating all this raw oatmeal. I was eating a lot of carb-heavy foods, like just anything that would be like immediate energy. But I wanted to continue doing the raw stuff. But since then, it was just like a lot of like the cheating on the vegan diets. I found myself needing to eat a lot of cheese and dairy. And that scared me a lot. I was scared, first of all, that I was brainwashed. I was scared that it was going to be really negatively affecting my health. I was also scared about what people were going to think about me. And I was terrified of the weight gain. I was gaining a lot of weight. Granted, it was probably like needed weight. I mean, I wasn't looking good. So I'm putting on all this weight, but I'm losing my mind. And so now, by the summer of 2016, I was still calling myself a vegan. I was still following the vegan diet, following like the vegan protocol. But I was having like these really regular binges on foods that were not vegan, that I wouldn't tell people about. But I just felt like I couldn't stop eating them. Drinking tons of milk. I had a huge craving for eggs. Just anything that was really caloric, really fatty, whole jars of peanut butter. And so I felt that I had no choice. I had to start purging up my food. I had to start doing it. And starting by like mid 2016, I had regular binges and purges just on food. It was like a horrible mental cycle that I'd gotten myself into. And that continued up until maybe a couple months ago. It became I stopped the veganism. I stopped trying to pretend to be highly involved in like the veganism or sticking to a vegan diet at the end of 2017, December or January 2018. I couldn't put up with it. At that point, I was just eating and throwing up anything that I wanted. I'm at the point where I'm having these regular binges, purges, and it started getting really serious, like every day. We're talking 5-7 days a week. I wasn't keeping down any food, and it all stemmed from this idea that I was so accustomed to eating these huge quantities of food. But the problem is that all the food I was always eating was so unsatiating. It was as if like all the food I was eating, I physically felt like I couldn't eat any more, but it just never hit this like chemical feeling like I didn't want to eat any more food. Uh, it's kind of something that I think is a real downfall of the vegan diet itself, is just the promoting all of these eating as much as you want, like eating until, you know, you can't stuff any more food inside of you. And that's what I was used to doing. And so I couldn't kick the habit, but I needed to eat all of these foods that I were told were just so bad for me. So it spiraled out into full-blown bulimia. And I've been kind of stuck in that rut since maybe 2 months ago. 2 months ago when I kind of decided to really like take drastic steps to try to reverse some of this. So now it's fall of 2018. I haven't done the vegan diet since about January of this year. I can't keep doing it. I can't. My health was deteriorating, and mentally I was just in a totally bad place. Some of the symptoms that I was having, there's kind of like two different time periods, because there's the symptoms that I had during just veganism, during just sticking to the vegan diet. And then there were the symptoms that I was having while struggling to stay vegan, but while having all these bulimic episodes. But to start, what I started experiencing first, health-wise, while just being a vegan, I had really gray skin, gray, dry skin, that eventually, maybe after the first year or two, really developed into like a yellowing of the skin. My doctor would ask me, she would always say, let's test you for jaundice. You look like you have jaundice. You've got this yellowing, which I still slightly have, this discoloration. And I was convinced, like, I'm just eating a lot of carrots. I just, that's what it is. A really bad color. My nails couldn't grow more than a couple millimeters and they'd break. My hair was really dry. It was really brittle. It was falling out in clumps. And I'd convinced myself that hair loss is seasonal. Yeah, everybody loses hair. It comes in like cycles. But it was pretty dramatic. I was losing big chunks of hair for long periods of time. I was always very cold. Obviously, when you lose so much weight and you're not eating any food that keeps heat in you. I was cold all the time. It could be 80 degrees outside and I'd want a sweatshirt on. Maybe the worst symptom that I had was I had completely lost my period around the age of 16. And granted, I never had my eating disorder behaviors started so early that it was never good. But I still had it. And then by the time I was 16, I was maybe getting it a couple times a year. And then once I started the raw veganism, it was completely gone for about 10 months, a solid 10 months. Afterwards came back for a couple of months, and I haven't had it in probably almost a year. And so my hormones are just like, they're totally like shot, obviously. Mentally, I was stuck in these, depressive thoughts, always having a lot of low self-esteem. I'd had panic attacks as a kid, and I think I was always hoping that the panic attacks would go away with eating a healthier diet. I mean, people always say that your mental health is really linked to what you're eating, but they never did. I was just hopeful that they would. Um, mm, I couldn't put on any muscle. Like I said, I was doing endurance training, but I mean, I wanted abs. I could do a million crunches and I'd never get abs. I was just like stuck in this kind of weak, skinny fat stage that you see a lot of vegans in. It's either like really skeletal thin or it's like this like layer, like almost like a jacket over their bones. It doesn't look good, and I definitely didn't look great, but I didn't see it. You usually don't when you're vegan. And dizzy spells, things like that. General things that I had had for such a long time, for doing veganism for such a long time, that I just completely stopped noticing. Most people do. You know, when you've just been living like that for a long time, it's becomes normalized. That's just how you kind of live. But it was after that time period that I spent during the binging and purging, but still trying to be vegan. So now I'm just binging and purging on these vegan foods, but they're vegan junk foods. I'm spending all the money on like vegan pizzas and vegan ice cream and everything my body is craving. High calorie, like high density, soy products, all this stuff. Getting some of that, but then also, you know, obviously throwing up most of it. And that's when things went tremendously downhill. And surprisingly enough, it was mostly mental. Physically, it was everything that I had had while I was just vegan. But now, like, imagine all that stuff. Now it's amplified. It's that times 10. Throughout the whole course of my veganism, I ended up getting 9 cavities, but 5 of them happened in maybe the last 2 years. I was getting heart palpitations, you know, chest pains, these rashes that would appear all over your body, probably because I was having these autoimmune responses. My immune system was not doing great, and now I'm getting these blotchy rashes on my face and my chest and my, you know, upper thighs that would just appear out of nowhere, and they'd last for days. It was really painful, and nothing would make them go away. I was having bloody gums and a lot of tooth sensitivity. I've got 2 chipped teeth in my front, the first one from a cycling accident that I got into, and then the other one was just from, I think I bit down on like a fork or something, and I just broke my tooth. It was ridiculous. But more than anything, it was, and I never saw it coming, it was the mental side effects that had really taken hold. Probably most prevalently was I was getting very schizophrenic type episodes. Maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I could have been I could have been making dinner for my husband. I was in the kitchen, and I'm just making something, and out of nowhere, I'm hearing these, like I'm getting like these voices talking to me. And I hadn't even noticed it. It was as like somebody was standing right next to me talking to me and telling me like, you know, you're the worst, you know, you can't do anything right, and, you know, you're shit, and like all these things. And I sat down on the floor and I just started crying to myself, thinking like, these voices are so right. I was going delusional. I was going so mental. And it's been a lot of things like that in, you know, maybe the last 6 months or something. A lot of these kind of deluded moments. It feels like almost like I'm concussed or something. You know, it's hard to tell sometimes like what's reality. Is there someone talking to me right now? I feel like I'm going crazy.
Do you also get paranoia?
I had these maybe like these anxious, paranoid feelings, and I think I'd always put that up to me just being too observant or too self involved with things. You know, never feeling good enough that like people are probably talking about me, this and that. It once you see things more clearly, um, when you start linking the way that you're eating to mentally the thoughts that you have, it paints a much clearer picture. And I wasn't able to see it while I was vegan. But now that you're getting out of it, you're starting to, uh, things are starting to slowly return to normal. I look back at all these paranoid ideas that I had and, all um, these emotions that I was going through every day, like waking up feeling sad or anxious or really not good enough or anything like that. People are thinking about me. People are always thinking about me when they're not. And none of it was true. It was just these ideas that my mind had come up with. And now I don't have that. I honestly don't have them. So that kind of speaks for itself. But definitely there was paranoid feelings, but they started going in the direction of starting to just feel delusional is really what it was. Another thing that started happening, which now I find very interesting, was I had started getting into kleptomania, um, shoplifting, stealing, as a way of coping with some of the anxiety that I was having while near the end of my veganism. I don't even know why it happened. I would have never thought that in a million years I'd be doing something like that. Um, but statistically, when you're looking at the numbers, most kleptomaniacs are women between the ages of like 18 and 30. And I'm like, yeah, heck yeah, they're the ones that are all dieting all the time. They're the ones that are starving. And uh, it, it was just an idea, a correlation that I had made. But that was about 6 months of these kleptomaniac type behaviors. Yeah, as a way to feel a bit more controlled, maybe. And that's stopped, but it's still something that confuses me. That really, yeah, that hard to understand how I even got into it. And then, something else that was actually very prevalent, even from the beginning of my veganism, was I'd had a really hard time sleeping. I'd always had a really hard time sleeping, just feeling a bit anxious, always worrying about things. And then in the last couple of years, the trouble sleeping had turned into more like bouts of night terrors, um, very vivid dreams that involved killing people that I knew in my life, those people killing me, um, cutting off body parts, just really like grotesque thoughts that I think were kind of responsible for me feeling so bad during the day, partially, maybe. Yeah, just kind of gross ideas, like hateful types of dreams, things that you wake up and you're like gasping, you're like sweating, you're gasping, night terrors. Um, that was also, uh, that's been difficult. And I don't have them as much. They're still there, they're still around. But yeah, those have just kind of been the more uh, prevalent symptoms that I've had recently. I've been in kind of poor health, never able to work out for a long time. didn't, put on much muscle. Um, there were certain points I'd feel so tired, a lot of chronic fatigue. I'd feel so tired that if, let's say, there have been times that like I forgot to get something upstairs, like grab my keys or something like that, my car keys. I knew that they were upstairs and I'm downstairs. I would just think in my head, and I'd be dreading like, oh, oh gosh, like I gotta walk all the way up the stairs and get my keys. I don't think I have it in me to even go up my stairs. I feel so tired. Like, and no amount of sleep or resting ever made it go away. Um, yeah, simple things like going on walks was like a chore. Yeah, I just felt so tired. I felt so out of it all the time. So those were just kind of yeah, some of the more prevalent symptoms that I had had.
One thing I was wondering, did you use any supplements?
Yeah, yeah. I was in the beginning. It might have just been a multivitamin. At this point, I can't really even recall. It was such a long time ago. But I started getting into watching Unnatural Vegan's channel. Um, and she's so compelling. Like, she's so convincing in what the way she says things and the way that she goes about things in a maybe a more informative type of stance than a lot of these other vegans who, they don't really have much to go off of except for I feel this way or I think this is the right thing to do. And she pushes a lot for a lot of supplementation, and I got into the whole thing. I thought that it's better to be safe, so I was doing. It started with just maybe a multivitamin. I did spirulina. I was doing hemp protein powder. Yeah, anything that seemed maybe a bit more, a bit closer to nature. Hemp seeds, flax seeds, I did all of that. But then um, by the time my symptoms started getting like really bad, that's when I did a calcium plus vitamin D. I was doing biotin because all my hair was falling out. I was doing um, a zinc, an iron because I was probably anemic. Um, I had really low blood pressure too. On the few times that I went to see my doctor and they took my blood pressure, if they could find it, a lot of times they couldn't even get a number. Um, they at its lowest, I could have been at like could have been like 89/50. That's really low. So I started incorporating more salt into my food, which I'd not had in a long time. Um, Brazil nuts because of the selenium. A lot of seaweed products for the iodine. At one point, I was just kind of like really gung ho into. It was almost like a trophy, like who could take the most supplements at one point, and I was up to like I'd be like, yeah, I'm taking 8 pills a day. I'm the healthiest person ever. Like, but I feel like crap. It made no sense. So uh, also at one point was doing. It was a really weird time. I was doing like coffee enemas at home. I mean, I was telling myself I was doing them because it's cleansing. It's you're removing toxins. You're helping your body purify the body. But if I'm being honest with myself, which I couldn't possibly be honest with myself until I just dropped that mentality of vegan is the best diet. I am a vegan. I identify as one. And then I started thinking more clearly, and I'm like, I was doing all these enemas because I was so stopped up with like just all this crap. I was so bloated. I was feeling terrible. Um, and then when you already have these thoughts, these negative associations with how you look, and you have an eating disordered mentality. I didn't want to leave the house because I'm like, I look bloated. I look like a piece of crap. If I don't get this crap out of me, like, I don't even think I can't even go to work. I can't do anything. So I think that that way of thinking, um, there's definitely this sort of convincing that goes on in the vegan community that I didn't see. But now that I lived through it, I've noticed that a lot of people, I mean, like particularly females who are doing the vegan diet, they come from a past of eating disorders. And they love to give you the claim, like, it's gone. I'm totally cured. Like, I can eat all this. I can eat as much food as I want. I have no problems with food anymore. And I just can't really believe them. I think there's a real vanity that happens when people get into veganism. I think it's really shallow. Um, I see it as people uh, who are obsessed with how not only the way that they physically look, but the way that they look to other people. And if you see some of these, YouTubers, these people who are putting out these videos, people who are trying to be really prominent in social media because of their veganism, um, I feel like a lot of them qualify, like medically qualify for narcissistic personalities. They do. They love to put on these shows. They love to, come out screaming at people who are eating meat and choosing to live a certain way. Um, I do think that has something to do with it. I think the veganism definitely makes it worse. Uh, yeah, just people trying to seem something to make them look really virtuous. And, like they eat it up. They love that stuff.
About the supplements, did you take B12 also?
That came in. I made sure that that was in my multivitamin. I was never
Right.
injecting it. It
Mm-hmm.
just that freaked me out. I
Okay.
just I didn't see how that was any different from like really getting into any other drug. So it's synthetic,
Over
it's
these,
man-made.
right, over these,
Yeah.
over 7 years, did you see any vegan friends who quit veganism? Anybody you knew?
There were people back when I was in high school, but that was those were young people who were everybody was trying it. When I was in high school,
Hmm.
everybody was got into it for some period of time. I really stuck with it because I was just like for sure that was the way to go. People would try it for 6 months or whatever and drop it, and I'd be like, I guess that you just weren't doing it the right way. You weren't a real vegan. I got into it too. That virtuous kind of way of thinking. I did. You probably know him. That really crazy guy, Arnold Kaufman, the raw vegan.
Oh yeah.
Uh, oh yeah, he lives a couple, or he has his raw cafe a couple towns over from
Oh
where I
wow.
live.
Okay.
So, and he has his I don't know if he still has them or not. He had his raw potlucks once a month on the third Thursday of every month. And for a time, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he was vegetarian. I had made him vegetarian. And yeah, he felt like crap too. um, and he wasn't even vegan. But we would go to these potlucks, these like hangouts that he would have. Gosh, and he always gave me the creeps. He was such a weird guy. And all the people who came to the potlucks, I mean, you get some okay people. Um, the people who are probably the most easy to converse with, who are the most likable, were people who were never vegan. They were always just normal people who were like, I just thought I'd check it out. I thought I would, just I'm interested in it. They were the nicest people, and it was the people who were vegans, the people who had been raw vegan, who were absolutely insane. And we love to make a joke about this one guy and his wife, the guy more so than his wife. They would go every month, and we called him Sun Man because he had convinced himself that he was over 1,000 years old, and that he had lived 3 previous lives, and he told us like all of his other names that he had had, and um, he was a loon. Like he was so crazy. So many people who were so crazy, and at the time you're thinking like maybe they're just on a higher plane than I am. Oh, they're just crazy people. They really are. They're impossible to talk to. It almost felt like the older people were starting to go like really senile. Um, some of his guest speakers that they had, like they should not have been giving lectures at these raw cafes. They're telling you how to cure your depression, how to cure your athletic injuries by signing up for their therapy classes, where he takes you into a dark room and talks to you at a certain frequency, and it's supposed to take you back into utero, where you confront your all your previous traumas. And I'm thinking, this can't be for real. None of this can be for real. And it wasn't until I invited my mom actually to come with me and my husband to one of these potlucks. It took her sitting there next to me listening to some of these guest speakers talk about whatever. And she's the one who's like, these people are crazy. Like, why are you going to these things? Why are you talking to some of these people? And I hadn't really looked at it that way. Um, without her perspective, I probably would have, I don't know, I probably would have believed just about anything. I was young enough. I don't know, I was already constantly looking for the next thing to try. So,
Are you by any chance in any of his videos?
he did interview me
Really?
once.
Is it?
Yeah, he interviewed.
Is it online?
I have no idea. I never saw it.
Hmm.
It was.
When
He
was
didn't even
this?
give me the time of day. This could have been in 20. I think it might have been like 2014. Um, yeah, a while ago. I had only been raw
Do
for
you know what
four or
month
five,
it
four
was?
months. It was summer, about August. I think he hates women. Whatever. I mean, that's up to him. He can hate women if he wants, but he would never talk to me. He would always talk to my husband. Like, love talking to him,
Hmm.
and
But have you
never pay.
seen all of those videos where he's with those young girls? Kind of
Oh, he's
creepy,
creepy.
hugging them or
Yeah.
kissing them. It's really, there's
No,
something so weird going on there.
I know. Oh, and he smelled weird. Like, he's a weird guy. I don't think anybody should really take anything he says that seriously. He's not doing too great, in my opinion. I didn't go into veganism thinking that I'm doing this to prove anything or to save anybody, like a lot of vegans do. Gives them a real strong sense of like self-importance when they feel like that they're heroes. They're saving lives. They're saving animals. I just couldn't convince myself that that was my main issue. I think at certain times, a couple years into it, I tried to watch documentaries. I tried to feel some kind of sympathy or some kind of compassion. But I grew up eating animals. My whole family still did. Um, I couldn't convince myself to feel morally that way.
What do you think is the future
Yeah.
of veganism? What's going to happen to the whole thing?
Um, from the way that I see it, it's obviously growing. As more people get interested in it, interested in trying it, more forms of veganism are emerging. Um, there are new markets, new products, a lot of hype around it. And it's very much a government movement. It's easy to see we're, pumping out agriculture like as fast as we can. Um, and it's being promoted by a lot of people. It's being promoted as a healthy alternative to how you used to live. And as long as there's still that mentality, I see it progressing very rapidly. But I also believe that for anybody who studied history in any way, history likes to come in waves. So what a generation tends to do will likely be the opposite of what the generation before them, behaved, or the way that they viewed things. It's usually on an opposite end of the spectrum. And that's really just nature. It's a way of retaliating. It's a way of being different. Um, and that's really only started happening in the last couple hundred years. And you see it in, the Roaring Twenties, and then we got into the war, and then there was everyone wanted to conform, and then we had the age of the hippies. It's always going back and forth. And this could just be a blip. It could just be like a height of a wave. We had our baby boomer parents, at least here in the States. We had our baby boomer parents who like to stick to traditionalism. They like to, see things in a very particular, straightforward kind of way. And now their kids are just kind of getting really loud. They're getting really crazy. They're finding something that needs to identify them or make them feel special, make them feel really important. And I think a lot of young people are turning to veganism as a very easy sort of, very easy way, but a very provoking way of being different or gaining an identity, having something that makes them special or superior to the way other people are thinking. And it doesn't involve a lot of intelligence. It doesn't involve a lot of hard work or good information. But anybody can really be a vegan. And now all of a sudden they've got a huge moral high ground. So I think that's more so a flaw with maybe societal norms, more so than an agenda. But the government agenda is the one that's pushing it all forward. So until that really changes, I think we're kind of screwed. Yeah, it's going to take a lot more people who have channels more like yours that are going to start turning things around. But health always comes first. I think a lot of people, they can be vegan as long as they want, but once your health starts to suffer, they look for other things, and they'll always return to the thing that makes them feel the best. So,
anything important you still want to
maybe just that I'm definitely doing better than I've done in the last couple of months, and I'm only eating meat now. I eat raw meat. I eat raw eggs. I've really cut out all the vegetables, and I feel it's only been maybe 2 months, and I feel 1,000 times better. And that's as much proof as I kind of need.
Right on.
So yeah, anybody who's kind of listening, just because the evidence isn't exactly out there, there's a ton of anecdotal evidence that meat heals you. I don't know. I'm just really excited now to start living this way and start actually getting back to normal. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is a cool experience. Have a good one.